Right now, you got markets reacting to what could be the end of the war again. And what you're looking at here is you got the S&P 500 all-time highs. Even though today the markets are closed, the US is celebrating Memorial Day, so US markets are actually closed. You can see that the futures are at all-time highs, and the markets that actually were open really extended their gain. So that's the S&P futures up 1.07%. This is the Nikkei, the Japanese stock market. Japanese stock market today up 3.3%. You got the Nifty, which is the Indian stock market, up 1.32%. Pretty much all of the markets going up. On the news, you got oil coming down. Oil was actually at one point under $90 a barrel, or just under $90, just over $90 a barrel. Now back at 91.65, which is what might be the end of the war. But the one market that's not doing anything, or that actually is worrying me, is the Bitcoin market. So even though we are potentially ending this war, and we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, Bitcoin is at 77,277. It's in the middle of this channel over here. It was as low as 74,000 over the weekend. I'll show you exactly what happened there. But what worries me is that if we are indeed entering the end of the war, and if markets are starting to price in the end of the war, and if oil prices are going down, and maybe are pricing in the end of the war, and this is all that Bitcoin has to give, are we saying that if the war ends tomorrow, that Bitcoin is going to be at 77 or 78,000? That doesn't really excite me, and that's what I want to spend some time talking about today. I also want to show you exactly how we got here, because it hasn't been a very simple weekend. I don't know if you guys remember, on Friday we had Trump skipping his son's wedding. So he was supposed to go to Donald Jr.'s wedding to Bettina Anderson. I think Donald Jr. has been married like 3-4 times. Anyway, he was supposed to go to his son's wedding. And on Friday, he posted this and he said, "While I very much wanted to be with my son, Don Jr., and the newest member of the Trump family, his soon-to-be wife, Bettina, circumstances pertaining to the government and my love for the United States of America do not allow me to do so. I feel it is important for me to remain in Washington at the White House during this important period. Congratulations to Don and Bettina, Donald J. Trump." So on Friday, Trump was back in Washington instead of attending his son's wedding, and then markets knew that we were going to be in a volatile weekend, right? We all priced in a very volatile weekend. When you look specifically at Bitcoin, if you look at where we were on Friday afternoon, and I'll try and get us to. Let's try and get to Friday, which was here. So we were like 77,700. What you can see is we actually started going down quite a bit when this post came out. And the reason is because markets were kind of forecasting. They said, hold on a second. If Trump is missing his son's wedding, something big's going down in Washington. And that was, I think, what the charades were this weekend. What I said on Friday and on Saturday, I said, sorry, say that again, Hoddis?
No, some guys can't hear you.
Some guy said there's no sound.
On YouTube.
There's sound.
Yeah,
You're on mute. Someone said, no, there's a few people saying there's no sound.
Yeah, I've got you on
Is there
YouTube.
sound?
Yeah, I've got sound.
Sound is fine. Sound is fine. Weird that a few people said the same thing around no sound. Sound is good. Okay, so as we were saying, Trump skipped his son's wedding, or he portrayed to skip his son's wedding, or he did skip his son's wedding, and he portrayed that this was a last-minute announcement, and that he's very sad, but he has to go to Washington. I think it was slightly different. I think that this was actually planned all along. I think that Trump said, "Look, if the headlines start talking about the fact that I'm staying in Washington this week and that I'm not going to my son's wedding, then markets are going to think, or the Iranians are going to think, that something serious is happening. And they're going to think that they're potentially going to get bombed again, right?" And so I think that was the shenanigans that were actually happening this weekend. You can also see that what happened here was they also summoned J.D. Vance back to Washington on Saturday. So Vice President J.D. Vance made an unplanned return to Washington, and his motorcade is racing to the White House. That was sometime on Saturday. So now you've got Trump on the one side, not attending his son's wedding, and J.D. Vance on the other side. And I think that was Trump's way of saying, look, this is the weekend where we're either going to end the war, or this is the weekend that we're going to end the war. Otherwise, you're going to be bombed again, or at least that's the perception that he wanted to give the Iranians. He wanted to give the Iranians the feeling that they had to make a deal this weekend. And it was so serious to him that he was actually missing his son's wedding. He called J.D. Vance back from a trip, and things were going to happen. And the whole weekend we got moments where there was going to be a deal, and then moments where Trump truth posted something around no deal, etc. Until and actually I must say I was quite active this weekend on Frontrunners now, and I basically said seems like the tensions are brewing this weekend. I think it's all a show though. I think Trump knew that the headlines would be about him not going to his son's wedding, and they would make Iran think that they need to make a deal or an attack is coming. Same now as with Vance heading back, make a deal or an attack is coming. We need to be ready for both scenarios. The chart was saying we could get an attack, but I don't think so. I kind of said I don't think there's going to be an attack. And I think that that's pretty much where we are today. On Saturday, Trump made he was going to have a call with a lot of representatives from the Gulf countries. He said, I'm in the Oval Office in the White House, where we had a very good call with, and he mentions MBS from Saudi Arabia. He mentions Nahan from United Arab Emirates, and he mentions a whole lot of other world leaders. And then in that, he says that there is basically a memorandum of understanding, and there's a peace deal. It says an agreement has largely negotiated, subject to finalization by the United States of America, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and many other countries listed separately. I also had a call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, which likewise went very well. Final aspects of the deal are currently being done. So that was on the 23rd, which was Saturday. It's Monday where I am today. So just to give you guys where it is. So where are we now? Well, I think then Trump realized that the markets are actually closed today. And so what he started to do was to delay the signing of the deal or the announcement of the deal. And where we are today is that, we're going deal, no deal, deal, no deal. And he said one of the worst deals ever made by this country was a nuclear deal put forth by Barack Obama. It was direct path to Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Not so with the transaction currently being negotiated with Iran by the Trump administration, which is the exact opposite. The negotiations are proceeding in an orderly and constructive manner, and I've informed my representative not to rush into any deal in that time on our side. The blockade will remain in full force until a full agreement is reached, certified and signed. Both sides must take their time to get it right. There can be no mistakes. Our relationship with Iran is becoming far more professional and productive. They must understand, however, they cannot develop, procure nuclear weapons or bombs. That's one of the big things here. He also said, though, this is quite an interesting point. I'd like to thank all the countries in the Middle East for their support and cooperations, which will be further enhanced and strengthened with their joining the nations of the historic Abraham Accords. So he's basically saying all the countries that were involved in this must now sign or should now sign the Abraham Accords. Now, the Abraham Accords are a set of agreements which basically recognize Israel in the Middle East. And basically, I actually ran a chat GPT and I said, what is Trump actually getting at here? I'll tell you what chat actually said. So ChatGPT says he wants more countries to join the Abraham Accords. He's asking them to officially recognize Israel as a legitimate state, establish diplomatic relations such as embassies and ambassadors, open trade relations, and cooperate economically and militarily with Israel. So that's quite like a big thing. He's trying to bring people closer to Israel. He also promised Israel that there would be no peace unless Iran's nuclear threat was going to be completely removed. And so, to me, I think there's not going to be any peace deals without that happening. I think we're going to get a deal anytime soon. And the reason why I say I think we're going to get a deal is because the oil price is telling you that there's a deal potentially on the table. The stock markets are telling you that there is potentially a deal on the table. The one market that is not celebrating, or maybe is celebrating, but this is a really bad celebration, is Bitcoin. And I must say, this is kind of worrying to me. So we're still in this bear flag. We're in the middle of the channel of the bear flag. In my mind, I think we broke down below the middle of the channel, but be that as it may. The problem is that if this is, if every other market is at an all-time high, the Nifty is at an all-time high, the Nikkei is at an all-time high, everything else is at an all-time high, and you've got Bitcoin at 77,200, then I think there's a much bigger concern here. And my concern is, if that's where it is, then what happens when this war ends? Do we just get back to 78 or 79,000? Because I think the Bitcoin has been pretty reflexive around the war, and I kind of expected Bitcoin to someone says we're in the middle of the middle of the middle. That's exactly what it is. So kind of worried about where Bitcoin is. I must say, when it comes to the altcoins, I think the one thing that I've kind of noticed about the altcoins is, or I think we've all kind of noticed about the altcoins, is that it has been quiet, and Bitcoin has been really quiet, but there are some altcoins that have really been performing. I mean, you can see them. NEAR is now, I think, at like 260, 250, I mean, 255. NEAR is at 255. I see Injective on the move again, $5.65. Zcash is pretty close to its all-time high, 667. I think this one's going to go. I really think this one's going to go. I think long term you need to have Zcash in your portfolio. There has been like an AI run, and there has been a privacy narrative run. So yes, the markets haven't really been moving, but if you've been in AI, or if you've been in privacy, then I think you've actually been you've been quite good. You've been quite good there. I was actually I don't know I don't know if I told you guys, but I have actually started to farm variational points, right? So one of the things that you can actually trade on variational is like Hyperliquid. It's a decentralized perpetuals DEX. It's literally, so it's very easy to connect to. Like, you just connect your wallet, and then you can basically start trading. And when you do, you actually farm points. Now, the one contract that you can actually trade here is oil. You can see that right now here on Variational, oil's trading at 91.6. So you can trade anything. You can trade oil, you can trade Bitcoin, you can trade ETH, you can trade all these assets with up to 50x leverage. If you use, there's a code below. You don't need to use it. You can use it. I recommend you to do use it. So if you go to, I'll show you now. If you go to, there's a code below. Yeah. So if you go to this link over here, and you use the code OmniRun. So you actually have to physically connect your wallet and put in the code OmniRun. You get a 15% points boost, and that's the biggest points boost in the industry. So that means that every point that you farm, you're going to get 15% extra points. You can trade everything. You can trade long, short. You can trade oil. You can trade real world assets. It's like Hyperliquid, except this time you can actually get the airdrop. Yeah. So that's the crypto side of it. I do want to talk about something else, just because it is Memorial Day and there's not much happening today on the news. I want to talk about the enhanced games. How many of you actually got to watch the enhanced games? You know, I feel like such an idiot, because I was actually invited to go and attend. It was actually, Enhanced Games was actually founded by a friend of mine, a guy called Christian. And I wanted to go, and I must say, like, with all the travel and all the stuff that's been going on, and I was in Consensus earlier this month, I was like, I really can't travel back to the US, because for me, traveling back to the US is like a 35-hour flight. For me to go to Vegas is 35 hours in the air. And the one thing, I don't know if you guys watch this, but I don't know if you understand exactly what the enhanced game is, but it's basically a version of the Olympics, right? The only difference between this and the Olympics is that here, the players can actually dope, right? They can actually dope. And as long as they doping with legal stuff. Now, when you say legal, I mean legal, not so some things are legal, but they're not allowed by the Olympics, right? Or by sport, or by the sports federation. Here, things like testosterone, human growth hormone, and all those prohibited substances are actually allowed, right? And what they want to see is they want to see if you can fine tune a human and actually make a human better. And that's why they started the enhanced games. I don't know how many of you actually caught a glimpse of the enhanced games, but they were pretty exciting. I mean, the one thing is that not many records were broken. The one record that was broken was the 50-meter freestyle. That was the one record that was broken by call it a doping athlete. So just listen to this.
Freestyle. All you need to know, column even red, proud in blue. So wait here, expect Proud in the blue suit in the middle to get off to a good start. He gets off to an absolute flyer. So Proud takes it down. Can Colomeve close the gap? They get past the 25. Proud still in control. Colomeve coming now. That world record, 20.88. They're stroke for stroke. Proud, Colomeve, Proud world record, 20.88.
So he got the world record. He actually got the world record, and he's a doping athlete. He actually got the world record. But obviously, it won't be recognized as a world record because he was doing it in a doping thing. Now, the idea behind these games is to see if we can fine-tune humans better than they are fine-tuned by taking all these illegal substances. And I mean, go and check out the clips. I mean, there's a lot of memes going around. There's a lot of clips going around. This is the guy who came last with all his testosterones and whatever else. 13 personal bets, $7 million in awards, new men's 50-meter freestyle world record. That all happened. Someone says top athletes have been doping the whole time. Then Enhanced Games just shows that who had the better doctors. That's pretty much it. All right, so let's keep it as a short one today. because the markets are closed and there's not much actually going on. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Remember, if you're not already farming those variational points, you get a 15% boost if you use the link below. It is the biggest boost in the industry. It doesn't cost you anything. Just plug in your wallet, put in the code OMNIRUN, and away we go. See you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.